I want to start with you, Bernie. Obviously, as John kind of laid out, we are learning more. Was there something that stood out to you in particular about what we know now? Especially, I take note in sort of this 911 call, one coming in saying that there were 8 to 9 children alive. That was at 12:16, but yet a second caller at 12:44 was another possibly student saying, please send police.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I honestly, I think by that timeline, I think there's a problem. Because the suspect was already dead at 12:21, according to the director. So I think that there's a problem with that timeline. That may be a mistake in numbers. What concerns me is you had a total of 26 officers in that hallway between 11:35 and 12:03. The incident commander, I'm really surprised, was actually the chief of police. The chief of police made the decision that this was moved to a barricaded circumstance. There was definitely, I know the director didn't say it, and he didn't want to get into it, and maybe they're still looking at listening to the 911 tapes and the dispatch tapes, but there was definitely a communications gap between dispatch 911 and the incident commander and the chief, because he should have known what was coming in to 911, and dispatch should have gotten that information to him. Had they gotten the information to him, he would have known this was not just a barricaded circumstance. Once the active shooter has shot and killed, shot and injured, unless there's some extreme circumstance that moves it to a barricade where they have communications with the suspect that would move it to a barricaded circumstance, the objective is get to the shooter. And the director was right. Cops today, not only in Texas, but around the country, are taught if there is an active shooter in a school, around children, shooting at children, all bets are off. Full force, moving ahead, and take out the subject. That wasn't done. And basically what they're telling us is it wasn't done because the incident commander, the chief of police for that community, made a decision not to move forward.
Also telling, I think, and someone brought this up in the line of questioning there, that a police chief is not there to answer these questions. You would expect him to be there considering the other law enforcement gathered. Chief Mosier, great to have you with us. We appreciate your time as well. And, we were going to do a kind of compare and contrast to what happened in Parkland. And sadly, it sounds like there's some similarities here, that you had officers on the scene and they refused to engage the shooter.
This incident is very much sadly reminiscent of the Parkland incident that happened at Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. And to Commissioner Kerik's point, our shooter was in the building or on campus for only 8 minutes. It took our shooter only 5 minutes and 32 seconds to kill 17 people and injure 17 others. So this timeline that you are discussing is very important because you can see how fast these incidents take place and how much damage can take place in such a short period of time. The events that are unfolding here are very similar to what you mentioned about the incident in Parkland. And it is difficult, but we do have to let the authorities do some investigating and be able to give some better answers. And I could tell by the questions from the reporters that there was some frustration there, but we got to give them some time and be able to investigate and get some more answers. It still is very early on.
Yeah, Bernie, they also confirmed that, when they were apparently in what they thought was a barricaded shooter situation, they heard more gunshots. And now we're left to wonder how many kids died in that stretch of time. Well,
you got to wonder how many kids died. You got to worry and take into consideration how many kids were still alive and could have been saved had they gotten into the room earlier. I understand that 2 kids actually were living and died on the way to the hospital in the ambulance. I want to go back to the chief for 1 second, John. Sure. The director, the chief was not there. The reporters were jumping all over the director on why he wasn't there. Bottom line is there's an active criminal investigation going on right now, and the chief is involved. The chief can't be at that press conference. Okay. The chief should not be taking any questions. So you can't blame the chief for not being there. I'm pretty confident city attorneys even the law enforcement authorities would tell him not to be there. They've got to get his description of what happened. They've got to take his statements and things like that. Sure. He should be nowhere near that press conference.
You know, and it's a great point. And obviously, while they were sort of trying to give the families and the press some clarity, almost like a reenactment, as you saw, they had the visuals there. There was also that visual of him being outside for so long. He was outside, he was shooting. There were people from a funeral home who came over, interacted with him. Was this another missed opportunity before he even got to the school, that there was sort of a chance to maybe take him down or kind of, disarm him there? Obviously, there's, a lot of, looking back is always easier to judge, Mike, but what do you make of also these reports where he didn't go in right away?
Well, again, it's a little bit different from our situation that we had here in Parkland, where the shooter was on campus for such a short period of time. Obviously, my law enforcement background is very minimal compared to the commissioner. I work for the fire department, and we handle the EMS response there. But any opportunity that obviously they could have taken to get him prior to entering the school, obviously would have likely saved lives. So there is going to be a lot of lessons learned here.
Indeed, and we wait for more information. That press conference being cut short there. We'll continue to follow the situation. We want to thank Deputy Chief from Coral Springs, Florida, Mike Mosier, and former Police Commissioner of New York City, Bernie Kerik, for their insight on this. Gentlemen, we appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you.